We did this yesterday. We're going backtrack just a little bit to get into running start. Tommy learned over there. It should be Rabbi Yehuda Omer. The Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kol gavin yesh b'yayin." Any grapevine has wine. V'shein b'yayin. If it doesn't have wine, it's trukati. It's from the This is a euphemism. Every woman has blood. If they don't have blood, it's from the family of trukati. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked me, "Ato ain't this pesulik, Rabbi Yehuda?" According to Rabbi Yehuda, there should never be a complaint that your wife doesn't have pesulim because maybe she's from the family of trukati. So that's why she doesn't have pesulim. So you never can complain that she has no pesulim. So it says Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak said, no. Kol gamar Amar sheyesh l'tainis pesulim. The entire statement Rabbi Yehuda on Rabbi Yehuda. The entire statement Rabbi Yehuda on Gim Beis and Beis indicates that he holds that there is a tainis pesulim. What's that statement? The Tani Rabbi Yehuda said, Be Yehuda, Bari Shoina, in Yehuda, initially, they would have two best men, is the only translation I can think of offhand, two, close people, one on the Chosin side, one on the Kala side. Nevertheless, lo yumamidim elan l'nisuin. Nevertheless, it only be at the time of the Nisuin, not from the time of Kiddushin. They did not do this, etc. That Brisa went on, based on base, that they used to sleep in the place of the Chosin and Kala slept in order to make sure there was no monkey business going around with hiding ketchup or taking away the sheets or whatever it was. And Gol, they wouldn't do this. So, that's the case. Rabbi is the one who said there are all sorts of rituals which go on in order that there should be tainis pesulim. So how could he be the one who says that turkati there's no tainis pesulim? So as Gemara, Mike do, and what comes out to reconcile this? She has to bring proof that she's from that family. She can't bring proof that she's from Trukati, so then we assume the reason she said pesulim is because she lost them in some nefarious incident. Now, the next Gemara, for the next few lines, I'm going to deviate from the pshat given by the Korban Eidah and Pnei Moshe, and for that matter, many of the other Meforshim. It's going to be, at the end, I'm going to come back a little bit to the Ridbaz. And I'm going to explain this more based on our problem last night. The problem we had last night was that how in Yehuda could there ever be tainis pesulim if they used to be miyachid after the Kiddushin, right? And that's what we said, that very often they would have relations, because they would be overcome by the Yetzer Hara. So if that's the case, we were bothered by how there could ever be shoshvinim or no shoshvinim. How could there possibly be any tainis pesulim? So I'm going to explain the next Gemara as focusing on that question. Okay, and you'll see it works out pretty well. It says when Rabbi Yirmiyah saw Meimar, Rabbi Yirmiyah wanted to say minhag Yehuda beGolil. The minhag of Yehuda to have shoshvinim. In Golil it said they didn't have shoshvinim, only in Yehuda. That works in Golil, but not in Yehuda. Because in Yehuda, he might have had relations with her himself. So before the chasna. So to have shoshvinim in the night of the wedding is no good in Yehuda, but it will do good in Golil. Rabbi Yisrael said, let's say they did it in Golil. The chiminag Yehuda beGolil edus Torah. I don't understand. In order to cause a woman to lose a ksuva, this is dinim ominous. What do you need to order to cause a lose a ksuva? To aid him, right? This is not Eidos. First of all, there's halacha shoshvin and apostle Eidos, because they're have nekias because they're best men of the chosin and kala. So that's the first thing. Besides, there's only one on each side here. It says one for the chosin, one for the kala. Besides that, they're involved in making sure what's happening there. They have vested interest. So therefore, this is not Eidos, right? So how can this cause a loss of a ksuva? It makes no sense, right? So even if he didn't Golil, you think it does any good? Ela minhag Yehuda bihuda. Rather, the minhag of Yehuda works even in Yehuda. And the minhag in Golil works even in Golil. Meaning, in Yehuda is the tainis pesulim, with the shoshvinim, even though they're miyached beforehand. And in Golil there's a tainis pesulim, even without the shoshvinim. How's that so? Mikeva and the Tamar, the Ein Eidos Torah lo yamot. Again, the same question. Since it's not Eidos Torah, so how does it work, this tainis pesulim? Says more, it's not, you're right, it doesn't work. It's a safeguard. In other words, this way she'll be embarrassed. She'll know that there'll be shoshvinim the night of the chasna, and even he'll be embarrassed in Yehuda. They'll know that there's shoshvinim the night of the chasna. They won't engage in any relations beforehand. So it's really not to cause her to lose her ksuva. That he can't do. Shoshvinim are not good enough for that. What it's for, however, is to try and discourage any monkey business going on beforehand. Okay? Says the Gemara, Imishu shlo yifritzu b'not Yisrael b'zima afilu mamid. Even if he... Now, if that's the reason, that in order that there shouldn't be any monkey business before the chasna, afilu mamid lo yeneman. Even if he has shoshvinim, he should not be believed in Tainus Pasulim. And yet we know our whole Mishnah was based on the assumption that there is Tainus Pasulim. So you're taking the other direction. You're saying the shoshvinim are to avoid or are not believed at all. They're only to avoid any monkey business before the chasna. So what's the olive base of our Masechta that we're talking about going to base in the morning after? What are we going to base in for? There's no Tainus Pasulim. So
I thought it's to make sure that they don't switch, that he doesn't switch the linen and she doesn't use ketchup. I thought that's the reason for the shoshvinin.
No. That's why you have the shoshvinin. Yeah. But how is he believed to go? What's he believed to go to Beis Din for? What's he going to Beis Din for? If the shoshvinim are a safeguard that there shouldn't be monkey business, and that's not monkey business on the night of the chasna. It means that the chasna and the kala particularly shouldn't, be mezaneh before the chasna. That's why we have the shoshvinim. Shlo yibnosi so prutzos bezima before the chasna.
Shoshvinim is only not the whole year.
It's just the night of the chasna, but that way she's embarrassed. She knows the night of the chasna people are going to be checking to see if she's a psula. So beforehand she safeguards herself that she's not going to go out and become, loser psulim. Okay, so that's a safeguard for that purpose. So, but then if that's the case, so how is he believed to cause her to lose her ksuva? Why is he going to base in the next morning? The shoshvinim don't work, right? Says more imishum where am I again? Even if he has shoshvinim, lo yenem, it shouldn't be believed to cause her to lose the ksuva. So Rabbi Yosef Shem said, and this is also in the Bavli, the reason why it's believed to cause her to lose her ksuva is because ein adam asui lo tzir yitziosav. A person does not spend money making a chasna, $50,000 making a wedding, right? Ulo tzi shem ralisha, and then say my wife had no psulim. The reason it's believed is because we have a chazaka. The chazaka is that a person doesn't spend that money on a chasna and then go and lie about it. Now, of course, this story about where the chassan spends the money. Nowadays, the chassan's parents spend the money, or Kala's parents spend the money. So we don't have this chazak anymore. When the chassan actually spent the money, so then that would be the logic, right? So it says more, wait a minute. Imishum she'eno dam yosu lo'otzi it's Yosef. It's because a person doesn't make great expenditures. Lo'otzi shem al ishon, so would say bad things about his wife. So why not? So now it's going the other direction. Why do we need the shoshvinim? She should be embarrassed enough lest he have the capacity to come to Beis Din the next day and say, I didn't find her any psulim. Right? How do we have the shoshvinim as an incentive to her not to be mezaneh before the wedding night? Right? We don't need that incentive. Since he's believed, he has credibility to come to Beis Din because of chazaka. In the Bible, it's called chazaka ein adam torech besudo mafsida. A person doesn't toil for a meal and then cause it to be lost the next day. Thatch it all on the rocks. People didn't get married in the old days just to have a fancy chasna. So in any event, so that's the case. So l'maisa, why do we need the shoshvinim? Whatever the shoshvinim are not believed anyway. And she's going to make sure not to put herself in a compromised situation because he has credibility himself. So what do you need the shoshvinim for? So it says a very interesting thing. Amr Abihila, by the way, the Bavli, if I recall correctly, does not focus on shoshvinim at all. It's a whole discussion of shoshvinim is purely a Yerushalmi discussion. So it says, when you know what we're talking about, Amr Abihila mipnei chashad echad, mipnei parutz echad. Interesting thing. It's because if there's no shoshvinim, we assume that the reason why he snitched on her is because he has suspicion and has heard suspicions. He has suspicions and has rumors of preachers, meaning that unless we have a shoshvinin, his chazaka is in jeopardy. The way the Meforshim put it here, the Ridbaz says that you need a raglan. It's a reus on his chazaka. It damages his chazaka. His chazaka of ein adam terech b'suda mafsida only applies if he follows the minhag of having shoshvinim. Because then I say he had shoshvinim, and he says there were no basulim, so then I can accept it as legitimate. But if I'm missing one of those components, either he didn't make the suda, so he didn't spend expenditures, or he didn't have shoshvinim, so then I say there's something wrong with his chazaka. When he didn't have shoshvinim, specifically because I say the reason why he said what he said is not because he didn't actually find basulim, but maybe because he was jealous and was upset because of rumors, of suspicions and innuendo he heard, so that's why he came to court the next day. So therefore, we want to make sure that we have a safeguard, that there's somebody who verifies. The shoshvinim are not edus, but they will verify what he's saying. So therefore, that's a safeguard to make sure that there's some veracity and some significant credibility to what he's saying, not just rumor and innuendo. So we need both, according to Yerushalmi. Chazak ein adam terech b'suda mafsida, and the shoshvinim, which provide some verification of what he's saying. Okay? So, says Gemara.
So, truthfully, the role of the shoshvinim is really a little weird, because without them, I mean, they can't go to the issue of chazaka.
Wait, just give me 2 more minutes. Meinachem, what are we talking about? In B'Shapish page, if the shoshvinim checked, umatzah, and he found blood, arei matzah, no problem, right? Found blood, so it's okay. In B'Shalom matzah, and if he didn't find blood, so then the shoshvin didn't find blood, harei pishpesh, lo pishpesh. So different gears here on the side, but we'll read Baz, let's read the Gemara. Harei pishpesh, lo pishpesh. If you don't find any blood, the shoshvin doesn't add anything, right? The shoshvin doesn't add any credibility. Whether, because if he didn't find anything, so his chazaka should suffice, right? What does the shoshvin add? Which is really what you were about to ask, I think. So says Mar, no. This is what says Mar elahachan kayomin. This is what we're talking about. B'shalo pishpesh, the shoshvin didn't check. Shoshvin didn't check. Umatzah, and he found blood, right? But what happens? He omers dam b'sulimi. She says, well, it's blood from my basulim. V'omer lo kiel dam tziparu. It's bird's blood. That's the equivalent of ketchup in the old days. You brought in a bird's blood in a sack and you put it on the bed, right? Hura kocho shelo noha kaminag. So actually, he would be believed if he took shoshvinim. If he had a shoshvin who would be mefashbesh, so then we would believe him. I would give him credibility because he wouldn't lie. He wouldn't have the chazaka that he wouldn't lie after A, having made a meal, and B, having appointed a shoshvin. But if it's a case where there is no shoshvin, and he claims it's bird blood, then we don't believe him. So the shoshvin actually gives him very, very, very significant power. It actually gives him credibility, even if he found blood, to say that the blood is bird blood, and not that it's not human blood. It's an amazing thing. So the shoshvin is I don't even know how to define it in precise English terms, but it's like a it's not a safeguard because the shoshvin actually has impact on the situation because they found blood here. That was all the shoshvin had to do, and the shoshvin did it, right? What it means is that it indicates that he's not being deceitful. He's following the standard operating procedure, and that's what he needs in order to be able to tie in the tainus basulim. Okay, now you did.
I'm still not. It's a little clear, but I still don't know exactly which little peg to put the shoshvin in. Because usually chazak usually stands on its own, but the point, I guess, what it stands on is even if you find blood, it should undermine the chazaka.
Right, but if he did a shoshvin, he has even super credibility, even though there was blood there.
Guarantees the credibility, but it just kind of throws out the other chazaka that he wouldn't lie after spending a lot of money for his living.
Well, we only give him that credibility if he also has a shoshvin. He need both.
So you really don't need that first.
No, because you were talking about even though he found blood. So he found blood here, and since he went through the whole procedure of both being toreach and having a shoshvin, he's believed super even to be the blood.
Find blood and there's no shoshvin, then you don't believe him.
No, they don't believe him, right? Because they say the reason why he didn't put the shoshin is because he wanted to be deceitful about it. So then we don't believe him, right?
So the first chazaka, not lying.
Right, it only works in conjunction with the shoshvinim. That's correct. Okay?
The truth is the shushbinim are really only necessary in case for this case for the claim of dam tzipor.
Claim of dam tzipor.
Without the dam tzipor, the chazaka just stands on its own.
Right, it's possible. The Yerushalmi is not clear about that. But it's possible that if there is no blood, then in that case he's bleeding without the shoshvinim. But to go that farther where there is their blood, to say it's blood, tzipor blood, then that needs the shoshvinim. Yes, it sounds like that from the Yerushalmi. Okay? So, now all this discussion is whether or not he can cause her to lose her ksuva. That's the issue. But getting back to the issue which we were speaking about several times already, but regardless, to stay married to her in Roshai is not allowed to mishum safek soita. In other words, shavi and apshi chaticha d'isura. He thinks she's forbidden, so therefore she's forbidden to him. The question over here is solely about ksuva. The Sayer Kakai, and it's going like the Tzniya Tamon, we learned already several times. Besulu Amona v'chulei, or if you have a Besula and Amona, but they're all supposed to be a Besula, Besulas and Amona from Eretz and Nisuin. The Kula Minahain Dam Rabbi Hila, B'Shem Rabbi Lazar, they all come back to Rabbi Hila, said name Rabbi Lazar. Mata Pesach Pasuach, if you find she's open, also Lakai by now to keep her Mishum Safik Soita because of a question of Soita. Okay, so all discussion of Shoshvin and all that was vis-a-vis Ksuva, not vis-a-vis the issue of Safek Saita because of Shavi and Nafshi Chaticha D'Isura. By the way, this is something which we didn't discuss here, and we're not, even the Bali doesn't discuss it, but after Chaim D'Rabbeinu Gershom, we don't believe him when he's Shavi and Nafshi Chaticha D'Isura. We compel him to have her, to keep his wife. Because this is all before the Chaim D'Rabbeinu Gershom. Rabbeinu Gershom made a Chaim, to divorce a woman against her will. In the good days, you can divorce a woman against her will. So therefore, once it's Shavi and Nafshi, goodbye, shalom. But nowadays, when you're not divorced against your will, so we say, baloney, you're just trying to find a way out of Chaim D'Rabbeinu Gershom. We don't believe you anymore. So it's a major, major legislative change in Judaism, which Chaim D'Rabbeinu Gershom makes. Okay. Anyway, it says more further. Tani, we learned, the word Tainas is superfluous, good enough, Ryan takes out. It's Besulim, Koshe. Besulim have no shiur. As small as they are, they're still Besulim. Ma'isa b'isha achar shlo nimtza b'sulim. El kein chayil, it's a ma'isa of a woman who she didn't have b'sulim larger than the size of a mustard seed, but she had that little blood. Our basif near Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, and they came from Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Our Maloi said to her, there should be many women like you in Am Yisrael because you have very little blood, not too many shilos of dam nida. Rabbi Schaier Chasayin Rabbi Leir Schaier, the seller Rabbi Leir said, Mekalallah, it was a curse. In other words, he meant it sounds like a bracha, but it's really a klola. Why? Because it's ke'inche, it's like people, it says Yeru'uya, but it should be damrinon, or something like that. As Mashbiach changes. It's like people who say, L'samya sagin hora. It's like people call a blind person full of light, full of illumination. So too, not that blood is bad, because you don't have blood, it means you're not particularly fertile. Because having a lot of blood is indication that, she, heavy menstrual bleeding indicates that there's...
Yeah, but this isn't really natural bleeding.
Right, this is psulim, but they linked the two. They felt that the two were related. I know, it's not all related? No. All right, but that was the logic here. So, because Chavrei Amar, the first, or Chaverim said, the Mekante law is making mockery of her, because Kol HaIsha Shadamem Watim, any woman has little blood, both of Nila and Basulim blood, then Watim, she has less kids. Rabbi Yossi Amar says, no, he was sincere. Mekalis law, he was praising her. Kol Isha Shadamem Watim, Ena Mitsuya Tami Taros. Let's get our priorities straight. Children are hinayer, but Lamaisa, she's not going to be Matar Taros, and that's a big mila. Okay, I think she comes contact with, she won't be Matami.
I thought it was praising her that alibi, all girls in Israel should have basulim, even to the small amount of...
No. They weren't they weren't so poets back then that they would give such praise. Okay.
No, another question. Why were they more preachistic in Yehuda than the Galilee?
They felt it was a shita. They felt that this was like, familiarizing. Yeah, what can I tell you? This is in the second. This is after the Churban, so didn't follow through on those plans back then. Okay, Besula Ksuvas Masayim. Besula's Ksuva is $200. Ma'amana's Ksuva is $100. Besula, Amana, Grusha, V'chalutza. I mean, if a woman is a Besula, and she's an Amana, she's widowed, the Grusha, divorced, Chalutza, Shkachalita, I mean, Erusin, and beforehand she was only betrothed, Ksuvas Masayim, Ksuva remains $200. V'yeshlan times Psulim, if they have no Psulim, so there's a taina against them. Hagyoris, a woman who's a convert. Vashvi, a woman who's redeemed from captivity. Vashivcha, a woman who's a maidservant and was released. Sheniftu was redeemed. Sheishtachru, freed. V'sheizgaru, and converted. Excuse me. Pchutzas mi ben sholosh shonim yomechad, when they're less than 3 years old. Ksuvas Masayim, the Ksuva is $200. V'yeshlan times Psulim, they have a times Besulim, because we say that then there's this chazak, they were a Pesula. Chuna B'Shem Shmuel said, B'Shekel HaKodesh. The 200 zuz is Doraisa, and therefore it's B'Shekel HaKodesh, which is twice as much as regular shkolim. Rabbi Barbina no Matbea Yoytze, it's prevalent money, which is half as much, and it's not a Doraisa. Masnisa Misail Rabbi Barbina is a brisa which is like Rabbi Barbina, that's Rabbanon, and half as much. It says, V'chamesh Shloim shall ben, the 5 sloim with which you redeem a firstborn are b'monat suri, are with suri money, which is the raisa money, double. Shloshim shel leved, the $30 you give when you wound a slave. Chamishim shalon, as the 50 v'shamafata, the $50 you pay if you raped or seduced a girl. Mea, the $100 you pay shamot shem if you said that she had no psulim. Kulam shel kodesh, they're all also the raisa b'shekel kodesh monat suri. V'lo tona b'ksuvas yishreiman, ksuva woman is not mentioned here, right? So says the Gemara. So ksuva must be the rabbona, and it's only in your matbea yoytze, prevalent currency, not in the raisa currency. Rabbi Yavid said, no. Klum lamdu miksuva asisha. From where did they learn the ksuva of a woman? The mem here is superfluous. Lo mi onasum v'fateh. Onasum v'fateh are the amount of money which we give for a ksuva. The chamishim kesef to raisa is the amount of money we give for the ksuva. So since that's the case, so therefore, he came in the tina on his father. It says on his father, commanded tana ksuva zisha. It's if it says a ksuva woman, and a ksuva woman is also shekel hakodesh. Akidum besula. You know, I made a mistake. Chamishim sloim Torah 200 zuz rabbanon, so it's a ratio of 1 to 4. So shekel hakodesh, I guess, is 4 times as much. You can come in. Mm-hmm. So it says the Gemara. Akidum besula. Fine. So let's say we're talking about besula, and a besula gets $200 in shekel kodesh, right? So what about a almona? Almona mai. Amrei said, "Dail almona shetito machtis besula." An almona gets half of the besula. But nevertheless, it's a shekel kodesh. In other words, it's sufficient to fine her that she gets half, 100 instead of 200, but she also gets the shekel kodesh. Says the Gemara, Amrei B'chia Bar said, Afilu nisnei ksuvas isha emoim. Even if you say that the ksuvas isha was inadvertently omitted, and it really should be a shekel kodesh, we don't pass it that way. Because despite the fact that you might want to put into the brisa, it's not going to work because we have so many Amoraim who argue. How so? So, kol leis kol fil nisei ksuva sishin moen leis kol elain rabbanim pligin. Don't all no, just got missing a handle. Leis kol elain rabbanim. 1 second. Later. Can't let the service. The 8th Torah. Okay, it says more. It's the Sultan. Says Gemara, I feel these things of Yishmael. Let's call it in Rabban Pligin. Don't all following rabbis argue. Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yonasan, Train Army, they both said Matbea Yoitze, it's prevalent currency. Rabbi Shimon Levi, Matbea Yoitze, it's prevalent currency. Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Shimon Loshe, Rabbi Yudah, and the seal said Matbea Yoitze, prevalent currency. Rabbi Yochanan said Sloim Siberianios, sounds like Siberian Sloim, but it means Syrian Sloim. Magyonios, another country nearby. Yerushalmios or Yerushalmi Sloim. So, if that's the case, everybody here agrees, a slew of Amoraim agree, it's Matbea Yoitze and not Shekel HaKodesh, which means obviously the Rabbanan. You know, what I said before is right. Shekel HaKodesh is twice regular Shekel. And there happens to be that the 50 kesef mentioned in Torah is 200 zuz. But the machlokas is in the 200 zuz, whether that's in Shekel HaKodesh or that's in regular Shkolim. So 50 kesef is for sure in Shekel HaKodesh. So it means it's actually equivalent to 400 zuz. The question is whether the 200 zuz of Ksuva, which is extrapolated from that, also is like 400 zuz, because it's Shekel HaKodesh, or it's just 200 zuz, because it's Matbea Yoitze. And the preponderance of the Maroim says it's Matbea Yoitze. So says the Gemara, Ilan Amin Achein, right? These people say like this, that's the Shekel HaKodesh. The other people say it's Matbea Yoitze. So which one are we going to do? Elafu. So says what you should know, even Rav Chuna, who's the one who said Shekel HaKodesh, Chazer v'savar kavason. He also holds like them, it's Matbea Yoitze. How so? Skip 3 lines because the Gemara just repeats itself. Asa uvda kumei, and it should be Rabbi Chuna. A case taka came from Rabbi Chuna. A very interesting case. A woman had a ksuva written up which was less than 200 zuz. Let's say her husband wrote a ksuva of 195 zuz. Okay? 195 zuz. V'omer, and Rabbi Chuna said, Tito mash kasuvla. She gets what it says. So, and Omer Rabbi Mana, not only that, Rabbi Chuna said to Rabbi Mana, Shei v'chasoim, sign on my psak din on this. Omer le, Ashvei shitasech, v'kol chasom, you're going to make your shita this way and sign on it? Or you're going to have me sign on it? Lo Rabbi Chuna, doesn't Rabbi Chuna, I'm not sure if the Gemara is talking, he was speaking. But I know that the Gilin Ephraim actually changed the Girsa here. But in any event, he told to sit and put your signature on. And see if they responded, how can you want me to put your signature on it? My signature on it. Don't you want to hold Shekel HaKodesh? And if you hold Shekel HaKodesh, so you can't give a partial ksuva. You have to give a full ksuva. Because the Shekel HaKodesh should mean it's Doraisa. And to give less than the full allotted amount would mean it's not a proper ksuva Doraisa. Why? Because Lo Rabbi Chuna Dom Rishem Shul Shekel HaKodesh. And therefore, the way it's explained here by the Ridbaz and the Mashbiach, to give less would be Masta Mashkosa Batera. If you hold the ksuvas Doraisa, to give less than that would be Masta Mashkos Bator, making addition on that which is said in the Torah. And we know if you make a condition that which says in the Torah, so it's batel. So therefore, if you told Rabbi Chuna Torah Emana, sign it, even though it's less than 200 zuz, so it must be hold to all ksuvas only Rabbanan, and therefore it can't be Shekel HaKodesh. Okay, that's what Gemara is saying. It says more, it's not a proof. Rabbi Abduma Ditzipari B'Shem, Rabbi Chuna said, Mishum Vitor. No, it's shaykh to have mechila on a sign which is written in the Torah. You can't make a t'nai on something which is in the Torah. In other words, he can't be Makadisher. If you also the right side, he can't be Makadisher al manas on the condition that she only have a lower ksuvah that says in Torah. Because the Torah says X amount of dollars to make a t'nai differently is masna machkos b'Torah. But she could be meichel her ksuvah. That's okay. And here it could be that the reason he passed this way is because of Mechila, that she was Michael. I know, but the Mashbiach and Ridbaz and everybody else says it's not, and it's a very strange Korban Eidah. Shaitar, so you know him, Yerushalmi. Everybody else on the page argues on them. It's very strange.
Does she have the authority to be Michael?
Yeah, she does. She can be Michael Ksuva. Yeah, she can be Michael. As long as she's not Mechila altogether, a woman can't live without a ksuva. Partial mechila she can make. Yeah. So it says, yeah, that's right. So it says it's a loophole. Now here it says me'ona, but the Shai Teres Yisrael and some other Mefarshim change it, and it should be me'ata. And you can see that a vav and nun is really, it's like a tough split in half. So it's me'ata. If that's the case, each Yishoisa Kesuvos B'chusa Mimasayim. If you're going to say that Toraisa, the Kesuva is Shekel HaKodesh. So a woman whose Kesuva is written for less than $200, Tatmin Kesuvasa, let her hire Kesuva, Kadesha Tito B'Shekel HaKodesh, so she can get the full amount, right? She's stupid to present the Kesuva. So it should be Amri. No, it's not, because she's a crook anyway. Amri B'Shem Rabbi Chuna. So it's saying Rabbi Chuna, you're right, but Malkum Shein Koyz Ksuva, a place where they don't write a Ksuva, so she can hide a Ksuva and she'll get Shekel HaKodesh. But a case where it's known that everybody writes a Ksuva for their wives, and they don't just rely on the assumption that there will be a Ksuva, so there, Madu Mafka, Higoiva. If she produces one, she gets a Ksuva. If she doesn't produce one, she doesn't get a Ksuva at all, and if she produces it and it says less, so we assume she was Moichel. Rabbi Yechanan said, the Tani came in the Bryce is a new issue. If a deaf mute married a woman who's normal, she can claim no support against him, v'lo ksuva nor ksuva. V'mesa, however, if she dies, hu yarsha, he inherits her. Why? She wanted, by marrying somebody who's a deaf mute, to pledge her property to him. Who, and he, who's a deaf mute and has no das, he doesn't want to pledge his property to her. Now, of course, he might want to, but he has no way of properly expressing or committing that since he's a deaf mute. So therefore, tough on her. On the other hand, if a man who is normal married a deaf mutess, so then she has a claim of support, sustenance. Uksuva, and she gets uksuva. And if she dies, however, and a yorsha, he can't inherit her. Why? Again, the opposite here. Shu, he's the one who's normal. He's pledging his property to her. She's not pledging her property to him. She can't because she's a deaf mute. Now it says, wait a minute, I understand. How do you acquire a chereshes? How do you makadosh her that she should get a ksuva? Rabbi Yirmiyah says, b'shem Rabbi Lezer, tipatek shekinsa bikachas kinsa. We're talking about where when you married her, she was normal, and then she got to be chereshes afterwards. Says more, no, that's not a good case. Says more, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Rabbi Yaakov Baruch B'shem Rabbi Lezer said, shekinsa bikachas v'nischarsha. If when she got married, she was normal, and then she became smitten, didn't he marry her when she was normal? So therefore their properties get pledged to each other. The fact that she gets sick afterwards doesn't diminish their pledge, so that's a full-blown marriage, not a one-way street. So we're looking for a case that's going to be a one-way street, that he's wedded on when she got married, she was a deaf mutus, and then she got better. Now, the next few words are superfluous, or actually they're wrong. Shelo Tomar, going to the next line. Shelo, that's the Shai Teres Yisrael, according to Noam Yerushalmi, takes them out. Shelo Tomar, don't say, Hoel Voisa Chereshes Tchila. You might say, since when she got originally married, Ein Lo Ksuva, there's no proper kinyan, and therefore no Ksuva. Lefum Kain Tzarech Lamem, that's what it has to say, Yeshla. That the moment she becomes a Pikachas, he's got to pledge to her ksuva. That's the halacha. A woman can't live with her husband unless she pledges them a ksuva, right? So therefore, the moment she becomes a pikachas, she must have a ksuva. So that's why he's wedded to her, she's not wedded to him. Because at the time, they're wedded to each other. But I mean is that her property is not subject to him. Because at the time they got married, he wasn't subject. She never submitted to him because she was a chereshes at the time. Later on, she became a bikachas. Well, it's his responsibility at that point to pledge a ksuva to her. But unless he extracts from her an agreement, she does not pledge her property to him that he should inherit her. That's an interesting thing because it sounds like here that it's actually like the Rambam Paskins that Yerusha Sabal is the Rabbanon. Because if Yerusha Sabal is Doraisa, it should work automatically, right? Because if it's Doraisa, that means that it's automatic. They're married, and now that she's a fully normal, so that's a full marriage. So it sounds like from the Gemara that it's not an automatic thing. It has to be consciously entered into. It's just that normally it's entered into implicitly at the marriage ceremony. But here, where later on she becomes a bikach, it's not automatic, and therefore the Yerusha Sabal does not apply. It sounds like Yerusha Sabal is the Rabbanan.
Maybe this is a marriage to Rabbanan.
Not if once she becomes a bikachas.
Maybe he has to marry her a second time.
But still, it said that she doesn't get a ksuv. He doesn't inherit her. So obviously, it's only, even if he has to marry her again, which the one does not specify. But for some reason, unless he stipulates it at that point, he doesn't get Yerusha. Okay, says Gemara. Rabbi Yossi lo amarke. Rabbi Yossi didn't say like this. He said, Ela ilu misha bala cheresh Hashem ein lo knas. He said, look, if you have relations, you rape or seduce a deaf mute, do you think she doesn't get knas? $50? She does. Not her parents get it. So, anybody who doesn't have a knas does not have a ksuva. But the flip side is, she has a knas, so therefore she gets a ksuva. So he actually holds even a full chereshes gets a ksuva. Rabbi Yehuda said, well, how can you link the two? You're linking a ksuva to the fine for raping and seducing? There's no parallel. For example, Hare Boger, so a girl who's over 12 and a half. Ain't no knas. People don't realize this. If you rape or seduce a girl over 12 and a half, you're off the hook. You only have to pay for a girl who's 12 and a half or under, right?
Statutory rape is
right, only till 12 and a half, right. So a rape is so I'm ready to keep a class of Davatoi, Ray Boger, saying class of Suvas on the side, you should get $200 as a ksuva. So we see that the two things are not linked. And vice versa, Ray Basulam in suing. If a girl was fully married already, but she remained a virgin, and that's verifiable, I guess. Yesh knas, then if somebody rapes or seduces her, and she's under 12 and a half, she gets knas. Uksuvasa money. At the same time, the ksuva is only $100, it's only ksuva to Rabbanan. So you see the two things are not linked. So it's possible to say a chereshes gets knas, but she doesn't get ksuva. Okay, cheresh or shoite shekitzu pikachas, a cheresh or shoite, which took a normal woman, then the cheresh got healed. Shoite v'nishtape, the shoite got healed, ain't lo ksuva. If she doesn't have a ksuva, it's not automatic. However, Rotzel Akaima, if he wants to keep her, Ksuvasa money, he's got to give her a Ksuva of $100. Now, says more Rabbi Lezer Shemachin said, see, you don't need a new marriage ceremony. But the moment he has beer with her, after he became cured or lucid, that beer is mechayiv him to pay $100. If he didn't have relations with her, even a ksuva of $100 she doesn't have. So it's actually not a new marriage ceremony, she doesn't say, but the first bia generates the requirement of the ksuva. Okay? Now, here comes one of the most, well, not quite, but the next Yerushalmi is talking one of the most famous Yerushalmis. And I made famous in the full sense of the word. Okay? Okay. Says the Gemara, Chus is going back to Mishnah. Chus is me, but no show showing me a mechel. She's less than 3 years old, so when she converts, so she's soon to be a b'zula. Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Chia Barashi, and Rabbi Yonah, and Rabbi Chia Barashi, B'Shem Rav said, what is this? Even if a man has relations with a girl under 3.5, the b'zulim go back. Lamaz Satorim was this analogous to Lo'esa Guma Basar, if you make a depression in the flesh, right? Because of Mismali, the flesh grows back, or goes back. Tainer Rabbi Chia said, so about somebody who muddies the waters of a fountain. Because there's vitzolos and gets clear afterwards, because the sediment sinks to the ground. So he has to say anything with the b'sulim. Rabbi Yisrael said, Masti Sarma Kain, the Bryson says something similar. It says, P'chusas mikan, if they're less than 3.5, so if somebody has relations with her, K'nois and etzba, it's like putting a finger in the eye, the eye smarts for a moment, but the eye comes back. Rabbi Yavin, here's the famous Yerushalmi. Rabbi Yavin said, Ekol Elokim Elyoin. I call out unto the God on high, Lekel Gomer Lai, to the Baruch Hu who has granted me all sorts of things. It's a lashon of a shvuah. Bashol Shanim Yemechot. A girl was 3.5 years old. 3 years old in 1 day, sorry. V'nimlach Beis Labra, Beis decided to make Adar Sheni that year. So, Absulim Chozrin. She gets an extra month in which her Basulim grow back. And if not, Ein Absulim Chozrim. If not, the Basulim don't grow back. It's a very famous Yerushalmi, because this Yerushalmi says that basically when they're Mekadosh Chodoshim and Ma'abir Shonim, they actually change the nature of the world. So the 3 years and 1 day are measured by Beis Din, not chronological, not 365 years, but 3 years based on the Luach as Beis Din sets it. Actually, there's a halacha like this in Hilchos Nida as well. When women set patterns of Hilchos Nida, it goes by the Jewish calendar, not by the non-Jewish calendar. So you can have a pattern of the 14th day of the month, 3 months in a row, even though the 14th day of the month is arbitrary, based on Beis Din, right? When the Beis Din when it exists, or then when they're making the luach by each month. So nevertheless, the patterns actually can go based on Beis Din's determination. So we see Beis Din actually has power over nature. Very famous Yerushalmi.
Does Yerushalmi hold like probably that the viewers from birth cannot marry a Kohen?
Yeah, sure, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it's a look in the.
That's not an issue. We're just saying that she's a psula, but not that she can marry a Kohen. Okay, a gadol shebal aktana. A gadol has relations with a ktana. V'akotin shebal gdola, or a child, a male child who has relations with a adult woman. Umuka say it's a woman whose psulim were moved by an accident with a baseball bat. Ksuvasam aside, they still get 200 zuz. Different man, the Gemara is going to explain why. Chachorim mean ksuv mukasei ksuvasam money. She only gets a ksuv of $100. Eizu kotan eizu ktana. What's a kotan or a ktana in this Mishnah? The concept of Mishnah. Mishum read ben chakramu kotan pachos mi ben teisha shani miyon mechot. A kotan was under 9 years old, 9 years and 1 day. If he has relations with the woman, she still remains a psula. Uktana b'chusim ba'ashol shani miyon mechot. And a girl who's less than 3 years old, if she has relations with a boy, so she still remains a psula. So nicho gadol shebal aktan. I understand an adult man who has relations with a girl under 3 psulim chozrim, the psulim grow back. But cotton shebal gdola ain't psulim chozrim. But what if he's under 9? Well, Ma'isa the psulim don't come back. So Amr Rabbi Yavin said Tipater shebal leah shelo kedarka. You know what we're talking about in our Mishnah. You're right. If he has relations in the normal fashion, so then she loses her psulim even if the cotton's under 9 years old. We're to have a cotton 9 years old who had relations shelo kedarka, which it seems in this Mishnah, though I'm not clear sure if this is always the case throughout Shas, but here bia shelo kedarka seems to be bia through the rectum. So therefore, she doesn't lose her psulim. So says the Gemara. So that would be itself a machloikis between her Rameh and Chachamim. If a woman had bia shelo kedarka with a gadol, according to Chachamim, she'll lose her ksuva because she's registered to be. She'll lose $100 off her ksuva because she's registered to be a beula. For Rameh, she's still considered to be a psula. She still gets $200 as a ksuva. Rabbi Yisrael said, "Va'afilu tema b'kedarka." He didn't even say that relation in a normal way. Katan biyasa bia. A katan has relations. Aval ein bo koch liga b'simonim. But he doesn't. I guess his aver is not yet big enough. The Chasam Sofer has a whole explanation here based on science, and he said, "With you need friction, and there's no friction." He has a whole long explanation down here on the bottom. But anyway, a cotton can't take away her simonim, the simonim of a woman. So if he's under 9, she still remains a psula because he doesn't have the power to take out a psulim. Even though it's fascinating because this links to Mamish the Bavli we learned this morning with Yerushalmi, we learned tonight. The Tani came learned to the Brisa Ma'isa she'ibra ubsulech kayomin. So Ma'isa where a woman became pregnant and she was still a psula. Why? Because she had relations with the cotton. Now it's interesting that the Gillian Ephraim Tank asks, the Gemara Chagir we learned this morning, looking for a about case Kohen Gadol, and doesn't mention it. So he asks, how come doesn't get possible? It talks about the Sabra Bambatia. What was the other case before the Sabra Bambatia? Pir Shlokadarko, which in our Gemara Taka means not through the rectum, but it means some strange way of doing it, through so indirectly through the front. So in any event, but why did you just bring down Bias cotton? So the Gillian Ephraim proves that the Bavli doesn't hold, but the Bavli holds that Bias cotton under 9 can't make a woman pregnant. That this is a machlok shin Bavli and Yerushalmi. Okay, but it proves it from other sources. The Yerushalmi holds the Bia of under 9 can't make a woman pregnant. I forget where the Bavli is. The Bavli actually says that in Doros Rishonim, even Bia of a boy under 9 can make women pregnant. Because it brings a right from Batsheva's lineage. There's a whole drush on that. In any event, it proves that the Bia Doros Rishonim they could, but now it can't happen anymore. But the Yerushalmi holds that Bias cotton can make a woman pregnant, even though it can't take up psulim. And that's how the Bavli could, the reason Bavli doesn't bring down this answer for the Kohen Gadol who marries a Muberes is because it argues on this Gemara. Okay? Mesidu Meir. They asked Rabbi Meir. Meir holds a woman gets a ksuva of 200 even though she had relations with the cotton or if she's a mukas eitz. Right? So they asked Rabbi Meir. Besulin ain't got. She don't got no besulin anymore, right? So the Mukas Eitz were asking the question now. Besulin, she don't got no besulin anymore. The Tamak Ksuvas Masayim, and she gets $200 as a ksuva. So Amar Lon says, you said, you misunderstand. You think it has to do with the besulim? Hare Bogeres ain't no besulim. A Bogeres, a woman girl of a chavanaf, might not have besulim. Uksuvas Masayim, she gets $200 anyway. And vice versa. Hare besula mina nisuin. A woman who's a virgin, but she was already fully married. Yesh lo psulim, she's got psulim. Yet ksuva samana, she only gets $100 for a ksuva, right? So we see it's not necessarily contingent on besulim. Rather, my kadum, how does it work? Bogeres lo batel china. A bogeres, she still has the chen of a besula, right? Because she was never married before. Even though she might have besulim. Besulim min anisuin, but the china. She doesn't have the chen anymore, right? Because she was already married once, even though she's still a besula. Ma'apliyin, what's the machlokas? By mukas eitz. Machlokas is by a woman who was smitten by a stick, the baseball bat. The Rameir Melo, but the china. It's a machlokas in psychology. Rameir says her chen is still there. Rabbanan lo batachina. Rabbanan said her chen is bought already. Okay? Besula hanivelis mina cotton. Well, Besula had a relation with the cotton and she still has besulim. Or from somebody who's not a man, meaning an animal. Okay, so girl had relations with a cotton or an animal, and she's still a besula. She's kosher for kahuna, right? Kesher l'kahuna means here, the assumption is obviously, I think it's a Kohen Gadol. Yeah, and what it says, next line. Sorry. If you look Kohen Gadol. My Mishra Gemara this morning. Even though she can be pregnant by this cotton, she's still a psula, and therefore she can marry a Kohen Gadol. Okay? So says the Martai, it wasn't clear in our Gemara. Ben Zoma seemed to hold it was mutter.
What if you don't hold like shul?
Oh yeah, that was my argument with Mitch this morning. That was the big argument we had. It was Mitch, because the article holds it's taka osir, right? The article is saying more that it was coming to Aser. But you see from the Yerushalmi clearly that it's mutter. Because the Yerushalmi is talking about even if she can be made pregnant by a cotton, and nonetheless the bias cotton doesn't make her Aser l'kahuna. That's what you see quite clearly, I think. Okay? Rabbi Yirmiyah, now here the Gemara Rishonim all change this from Rabbi Yirmiyah to Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi appears later on, and Rabbi Yirmiyah appears later on, and based on the context, this should be Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Ami Makshe, they asked, Ma be'nol lebein nivels be'etzba? What's the difference between a woman who's had relations with a cotton or with an animal, and a woman who's a nivels be'etzba is really like a mukaseit? She has had her basulim removed by having, being pushed by a finger. Okay? So, ila nivels be'etzba shemein absula b'shulakuna, a woman who is nivels be'etzba, meaning she had her basulim removed. Isn't she pasul lakuna? So what's the between her and a woman who had relations with a cotton or an animal who's not? So a couple answers. Rabbi Chagai said, Tipata shabar lesh lo kedarka. We're talking about where the cotton had relations with her, not in the proper fashion, right? Again, through the anus, through the rectum, whatever. So boy, Rabbi Chagai mehadarbe. So Rabbi Chagai said, "Oy vey, what did I just say? I want to renege on what I just said. Even if it was bola kedarka, so it's still she's still muteris to kohen gadol. Amalei Rabbi Abba said, "Lo te'arabach, do not renege. What you said is good." Says Gemara, "V'lama by Rabbi Chagai mehadarbe." Why Rabbi Chagai say? Actually, Rabbi Chagai wanted to be chosman, and he wanted to learn that even Bia Shloka Darka makes a pasul lakuna. That's what he wanted to learn. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter whether Bia Shloka Darka or not, it makes a pasul lakuna. So he said, don't renege. V'lam by Rabbi Chagai mehadarbe. Why do you want to renege? Minodain d'chsiv, it says that Isha bivsuleha yikach. What does it mean bivsuleha? Bivsuleha is Lashon Rabim, right? It's a plural. So what is bivsuleha? She only has one basulim, right? So it says, she wanted to darshan, she has to be a bsula from both sides. Both orifices, right. So as the Gemara, with the Kavasson, we have a similar drasha, not halachic drasha, an agadic drasha. It says that Rivka was a bsula, Rashi actually brings this down on Chumash. She was a bsula, the ish lo yadah. She was a bsula, and no man knew her. Meaning, Rivka was bsula mikadarka, no man knew her in a normal fashion, had relations in a normal fashion, not even through the other orifice. Alright, it's a lezer, it's said, even with their hands, nobody touched her. Shemet says, the rod of evildoers does not rest on the lot of tzaddikim. I mean, Rivka was so holy that nobody ever even touched her. Now, be it as it may, going back to our issue, what did Rabbi Chagai do with before he was Choser Bo? And the truth is, what did he do with it even after he wasn't Choser Bo anymore? In other words, originally he thought Shlokadak was okay. L'maskona, he also thinks Shlokadak is okay. And in the middle he thought Shlokadak is not okay because of Bisuleo, right? But when he knows that, when he said Shlokadak is okay, right? What does he do with Bisuleo? With Loshen Rabim, right? So Pasal Abba Roya, it's talking about, he explains it's talking about where there's Haroya. In other words, if a woman has relations with a man, and it's not full relations, it's just partial relations. How raw, it's just, touching or inserting the tip of the aver, right? Nevertheless, she's also. Now, the Achronim will speak about this, and they say that it could be although raw is only also by, I shouldn't say all Achronim, but the Ephraim says, the Rebaz, it could be that the raw is only also by a gadol. And by a cotton, even Hara is mutter because he doesn't have the cholos to take out her basulim. In other words, it's not clear what the conclusion of the Yerushalmi is. Is Hara or make her also kedarka even if it's a cotton, or is Hara make her also shlo kedarka because of bisulea only if it's a gadol who does Hara because he has the koyach to be meisher basulim. That's not clear. Anyway, it says Rabbi Lama lays Rabbi, and here it should be Rabbi Yosei. the same Rabbi Yossi asked the question. Why did Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi who asked the question before, what's the difference between a woman who has relations with a cotton and a woman who has her basulim removed with a finger? Didn't he know that the relations are unique? Right? I'm sorry, was that the question? Before he asked, what's between her, a woman who had relations with a cotton, and Ivel's be'etzba?
Wasn't Ivel's be'etzba similar to Lucas AIDS?
Yeah.
Because it's not relations, it's a physical thing, it's just mechanical. She wants to pursue them through mechanical means. So she can still have the chain of the pursuer, even though she's missing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fits in.
No, because that may be, but that's not that's not the Gemara. The Gemara's question here is, why did Rabbi Yossi not learn Besuleh going on Harah? Okay, because Rabbi Yossi holds, I got it. Rabbi Yossi holds that Miyachah Be'etzba is no good, and he must learn it because Besuleh, she doesn't have Besulim anymore, right? Otherwise, how does he know Miyachah Be'etzba can't marry a Kohen? Must because she doesn't have Besulim, and he learns out from Besuleh. But maybe Besuleh is going on Harah. How does he know that Besuleh is going on Asers even Miyachah Be'etzba? Only Asers Harah, actual Biyah, not Miyachah Be'etzba. So that's why I'll tell you why. Because the Taka didn't know what the status of Harah is at all. The reason why it wasn't that he knows for sure that Besuleh renders Mukas Miyachah Be'etzba or Mukas Eitz no good. Maybe Mukas Eitz is, maybe it's going on Harah. He just didn't know what the status of Harah was. And we know that from elsewhere in Shas. Because Rabbi Yossi asks her, Haraya b'zochar ma'u. Is Haraya usher in homosexuality? And of course it's usher, but is it Chai Misa? Haraya v'hema ma'u. Is Haraya Chai Misa by bestiality? So since he didn't know, it's not that he knew for sure Miyachah Be'etzba is no good. And Haraya is good. It could be Haraya is no good, and Miyachah Be'etzba is good. His question before was only asked from the standpoint of a question. He wasn't trying to give a definitive approach as to what is actually good for a Kohen Gadol, what is not. He was just asked a question. He doesn't have to lay down the law. When Rabbi Yirmiyah heard that Rabbi Chagai said that Bia's cotton doesn't passel her, right? So he said, Lo alador have a Rabbi Ami Makshay. Rabbi Ami would never ask the question, what's the difference between that and Miyachah Be'etzba? Because it's pashut that one can say the distinction between Miyachah Be'etzba and Bia's cotton. And Miyachah Be'etzba is different because he actually took out the psulim. It's supposed to be as cotton, which doesn't take out the psulim. So it's just a small point of information. That's not the type of question he said Rabbi Ami would have ever asked. It's pashut to make a chiluk. Now, the Yerushalmi bottom line, it comes out very unclearly. We don't know the status. Initially it sounded like Bias cotton never renders a woman unfit. Then it sounded for Rabbi Chagai that it's only Bias cotton shelo kedaka which never renders a woman unfit. But then Rabbi Chagai fidgeted back and forth. And we don't know what Rabbi Chagai's final conclusion was, whether it's Bias cotton at all, or only it's Bias cotton shelo kedaka. So the bottom line is that it's unclear. The Rambam just leaves out the whole issue of Bias cotton, whether it renders a woman pasul lakun or not. He doesn't paskin either leheter or leisser, which is a very fascinating thing. Mishnah Melech goes crazy. How come the Rambam left it out? I don't know.